Look at the adjective. Play.
And I have half the brain that you do. I told you. Oh, God.
Now is the franchise going to take the Viagra?
Gonna put some butts in the seat.
Hello there, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 105 of Because WCW, the podcast where the big boys play. My name is the Twisted Genius Dean Ayers, and I'm joined as ever by DAZN. What do you do at DAZN again these days, mate?
Oh, for crying out.
5 concussions. Look, the fact I remembered you worked for DAZN is impressive on its own.
That's very true. Why don't you finish introduce me and then I'll walk you through it. How about that, sweet
I'm joined by my colleague who does something for DAZN. It's Liam Happ, everyone. Liam, it's been like a month since we've done one of these, and this is all my fault, right? First of all, I was on holiday. Then after I came back from a holiday, I got ill. Now we're recording something, and we haven't even got to your laptop breaking, which normally happens around this time of year.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm so glad that the laptop has been holding up. Could do with a change next year, probably. I mostly use my work laptop now. But yeah, I mean, as far as getting these done, it's starting to turn into a monthly endeavour. I remember when it was weekly, we were happy with fortnightly. Yeah, and now we're getting into like the wooden age, aren't we? Wooden age of podcasting.
Well, you know, if we get another lockdown, then it's bad news for most people, good news for our listeners, because we will ramp that content up. But
yeah, I do not want that because my wife has just left for Stockholm because her company just opened an office in Sweden, so she's there for the week. I'll be joining her with the kid going to her grandparents over the weekend, so I'll be checking out Stockholm for the first time. Finally breaking this duck of not being on a plane since before lockdown.
Sorry, I thought you were about to say that your wife had left you, and I was like, well, what's that got to do with the podcast? Maybe she just had enough of you recording the podcast. Can you look after the kid? No, I'm recording the podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna make millions off this venture. Honest, eventually, one day.
One day.
But no, no matter how many hints I leave, and no matter how much groundwork I try and put in to make her want to leave me, she
always comes back.
Yeah, it's a shame. Try as I might, she will not divorce me. Apparently, this is a legit life sentence. Yeah, well, I'm also planning on going to Edinburgh early next year for the Six Nations game, the Calcutta Cup.
Very nice.
There is talk of, obviously you and I got our eyes on certain German wrestling promotions and Bundesliga football, and the coup de grace is I've got my crosshairs set on a return to Philadelphia, which some not only will some people remember I've constantly talked about how much I love going to Philly on this podcast, but a fair pocket of our listeners are from Philadelphia and New Jersey.
Indeed.
So
yes.
Hello everyone, if you're still putting up with us after all this time. And yeah, I would love to get out there for it will be like late May, and if it goes to plan, I'll be out there on my birthday, which would be a cool thing I've never done before. Bit of Memorial Day baseball, bit of birthday celebrations at Chuck E. Cheese, you know, because we'll have our kid with us.
Classic stuff.
Well, it'll be the first time I take my daughter out there, and she's really excited about it. So I really want to make it happen. That is why I don't want to hear any talk of a lockdown. But to get back to your original question, because we're mastering the art of the detour on this at the minute. But to get back to your original question, I am a content manager at DAZN. Specifically, my jurisdiction at the minute is to serve as the managing editor of the DAZN News website, which is actually the only real part of the enterprise that is not on the DAZN app, where you would go to stream the big fights that they have. There is also a DAZN News website which will have like some good features, the news. It will give you all the information of like how to watch DAZN shows and things like that, what time they start and stuff. So we're building up a bit of a presence, doing some great colour features. There's more and more football and MMA starting to show up on there.
Nice.
So it's building up nicely, and that is what I do. Then
of course, you were also posting content when I saw you. Now, what was it last? Was it last weekend? Yeah, it was. Last weekend. It was the we were both in London at the Old Street Sports Bar and Grill for Hooked on Wrestling presenting AEW Full Gear, which was a tremendous show.
Oh,
And
brilliant,
you were
wasn't it?
just posting the results up on the DAZN site as they happened.
Yeah, we did a
And
live blog. It because of
yeah,
the great numbers we got doing some all out coverage. We thought we'd follow up with the next pay per view, and obviously for the die-hard wrestling fan, it was a great night. Some really high end matches, and the cherry on the cake in the main event being the payoff to a really good long term angle.
oh yeah,
And Hangman Page
2 years
winning.
long, more than
Yeah,
that,
it's
something. Yeah,
absolutely incredible. But in terms of us actually getting SEO traffic and from Google searches, I think it's fair to say that the big rush came from the return of CM Punk.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
but we jumped on, we gave it a go,
yeah,
and yeah, I mean we try and do whenever there's justification, and for the most part it can just, especially for a site like ours, it can just be WrestleMania coverage,
yeah.
SummerSlam coverage,
Yeah.
something big like CM Punk, and we get some good exclusive interviews. That's probably the best thing we've got, is because we've got some great writers on our team who get great access to the stars of WWE, AEW, MLW, and we get some really good exclusive interviews
Nice,
on site. They get picked
nice.
up by a lot of places as well.
Yeah, cool. And I've also I've got a couple of gigs behind the commentary desk coming up. So very very if you're very very quick at downloading this, we have got doing 2 shows for Fight Nation. This Thursday, the 25th of November, in Eastbourne at my Skate World, which is a skating rink which we convert into a wrestling venue. It's a fantastic little venue. And then December the 12th, Sunday, December the 12th, we return to the Maidstone Moat Park Leisure Centre in Maidstone for Undisputed. And that is going to be awesome. And I get to wear my new spangly jacket that I bought in Camden in the summer.
Did you buy it in Camden or did you steal it from Jamie Kennedy?
No, I definitely bought it in Camden.
Fair enough.
I have the eye-watering receipt to remind me. Yeah, it's one of those where like I'm gonna go. I was it was actually the day after I think it was one of the other it might have been All Out actually. It was the day after one of the All Out or one of the AEW parties, and on my way home I thought I'm gonna pop to Camden Market and have a mooch around there, and I went into this shop and it's like, this jacket's amazing. So yeah, it's one. It's understated and classy, not sequined and in your face. You know.
So how did you find that in Camden?
I'd been
If
in
it was that and not the latter.
I'd been in I'd been in the shop before, and don't get me wrong, there were some like monstrosities on display there as well. But you just got to pan through the shit to find the gold sometimes.
Yeah. True story, Dean. About 10 years ago, a friend of mine had a stag do in Cardiff, and the theme of one of the nights out on this stag weekend was ugly shirts. You had to wear the most hideous shirt going.
Yeah.
And I should have really rung you, given some of the stuff you wore to wrestling
Fair
shows back in the
play,
day.
yeah, fair shout.
But I didn't think of that. I had a bit of a brain fart, and instead, to be fair, my second, the thought I did end up having was a really good one, a good second place finish, was that I just immediately thought, right, I need to go Camden. So me and a couple of the guys who were going went to Camden, had a few beers, went into like 1 or 2 shops, and we all set. Didn't take long at all.
Excellent. See, you know what you're getting there. You know what you're getting there.
Exactly.
So today on the show we're going old school. We're going back to our roots. We are doing a pay-per-view review. We are bringing back a very popular guest that we had on about a year and a half ago, maybe.
Don't ask me when it was. My timeline is jumbled. After lockdown and all that, no hope. I couldn't tell you what guest came on what episode with what pay-per-view. It would sound like a game of Cluedo, wouldn't it? It was Doug Williams in the study with Halloween Havoc.
No, Doug was Superbrawl 2. I do remember.
See, I'd be useless at this game.
Listen up, slapnuts. That's right. This is Jeff Jarrett, the chosen one, and you're listening to Because WCW. Now choke on that.
How do I remember that? Yeah, can't remember basic things about my life. Who knows? Anyway, let's bring our guest in. And welcome back to Because WCW, Sam Berry Gardiner. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Good to
We're trying to
be
work out when it was you were here, how long ago it was. Well, I reckon a year and a
coming
half.
coming up 2 years. It was February. It was just before the leap year, because you were talking about doing Superbrawl 2 with Doug.
Yes.
That was on. Then I think that got delayed a bit anyway. But yeah, so it would have been February 2020. Yeah, just before lockdown.
I was going to say, would it be fair to say that your appearance on this podcast was the primary cause of lockdown?
Oh yeah, pretty much. I spread COVID via podcast, I guess. I don't know how that works, but yeah. So who knows what's going to happen now? I apologise to everyone in advance for whatever pandemic spread.
Yeah, we're going to have a swarm of locusts, aren't we?
Yeah, we have opened the doors to hell. But how have you been, and how is the world of wrestling? You getting a few bookings coming your way now that shows are up again?
Yeah, I'm doing lots of WrestleForce because he's running pretty much every weekend. So I've done quite a lot for him, and then a few others are coming in. Debuted for Fight Factory up in Lincoln, but it was Gainsborough. Done that just gone Saturday. Then randomly got offered Friday night. Got contacted by an Italian promoter who I've been looking to work for a while. Oh, long story short, are you free next Saturday? Oh, no. But yeah, nearly.
Oh.
But yeah, it's all picking back up again.
That's good to hear. And all of this is under the Voodoo gimmick?
Yeah, just doing Voodoo at the moment. I did actually buy some new stuff some new gear for Exodus, but I haven't done anything with it yet.
And I'm right in saying you make most of your gear yourself, don't you?
Kind of. It's more. I mean, all the Voodoo stuff is just sort of cut up suits. So it's none of it's like proper wrestling gear, but it's all. Yeah, I mean, all my Blockbuster stuff I made myself. Some of the Exodus stuff and some of the Voodoo stuff, but it's mostly just sort of repurposed
stuff. But then why would a guy called Voodoo wear conventional wrestling gear?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I had this argument. I got put on one of those trash bag wrestler Facebook sites at one point because I looked like I was wearing I think they called it a Hot Topic wrestler. I was just wearing all the goth stuff for Exodus, but why would a monster wear tights?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And this was about the time when the two of the biggest factions in wrestling were the Wyatt family and the Shield. And none of them were wearing wrestling gear, but they don't care about that sort of stuff, do they?
No, very good point.
But yeah,
absolutely, yeah. Well, so it's good to hear that that business is picking up, and hopefully the world is continuing to get back to normal. I mean, WrestleForce, they're family orientated shows, really, aren't they?
Yeah, good.
Based around sort of the. I kind of want to say the centre of England, but I'm sure there's a better phrase for that.
I mean, they're based out of Essex.
Essex, okay.
Spread out, sort of down as far as they've done like Southampton, and they used to do up in Tamworth, and so spread out, sort of Midlands, all sort of around London, and spreading out from there.
Nice.
But yeah, mostly sort of Essex and out of London.
And has the Voodoo gimmick made any children cry yet?
Oh yeah,
excellent. That's how you know it works.
The thing is, I've stopped. I mean, years ago, I stopped actually trying to scare anyone because one, it's a bit much, especially on family shows. And then I always used to pick the one kid that wasn't scared and used to get up in my face, and it's like, I can't punch him now, can I? So, but we did a show a few weeks ago, and I think for the first time, 3 kids hid in the toilets for the entire match. So that was good.
Fantastic. Yeah. Great stuff. So, tell us, what show have you chosen to review, and what reason was that choice made?
I have chosen Superbrawl 1 this time, which similar to my last choice of Starcade 91 was just one of the VHSs I grew up with back in the, must have been what, 92, 93 I got them. It was a few years after it happened, but yeah, so yeah, just another one I grew up with, so nostalgia, and this one's actually not a shit show, unlike the other one. Well, I say that because not Superbrawl, Starcade 91. I loved the VHS, and then when I actually watched it back fully, when it's got like five or eight, I don't know, whatever tag matches in a row, it really. Yeah, it really gets to you. But when they cut half them out on the VHS, it's not too bad.
It's fine, yeah. And there's a cluster of, I think, 4 matches here that were deleted off of the VHS, which we'll get to as well. So
4 matches and like 3 segments and loads of it missing. So some of this stuff I saw for the first time a couple of weeks ago.
Excellent. Right. Well, it is May the 19th, 1991, and we are coming at you from the Bayfront Center in St. Petersburg, Florida, for the very first WCW Super Bowl pay-per-view. And the show would move to February the following year and stay there to bring it in line with the Super Bowl, after which it's named. So the opening titles have lots of American and Japanese flags to signify the international ramifications of the main event. This patriotic theme is continued with a woman that I've never heard of before, shakily singing an a cappella version of America the Beautiful. It's safe to say it's no WrestleMania. Our commentators are Jim Ross and Dusty Rhodes. The main event will see Ric Flair face Tatsumi Fujinami, and we'll cover all the controversy and WCW fuckery later on with that, because, oh God, it's confusing. Dusty Rhodes is far too excited and needs to calm down. But Liam.
Yes.
Oh, where's he gone? There he is. Hello. You know how we always complain about how WCW pay-per-views have about 10 minutes of just talking a load of shit and segments and interviews before we get into the first match?
Yes, it's a rather unwelcome trope of theirs.
Yeah, well, this time around, we say hello to Dusty and Jim Ross, and we go straight into the first match without the usual 10 minutes of horse shit.
Who would have thought
you do get a couple. Yeah, you do get a couple of minutes of the singing. I guess.
Wow,
which is so bad, if you notice, it messes up the tracking on the master tape.
Do you know what?
VHS tracking goes on the network.
Yeah.
Yeah, you say that, but one thing I'll say in their defense for that is, one of the main reasons we really hate that big segment of admin or talkie or running down the card or whatever it is they do. There's various incarnations of it, isn't there, Dean? And the main reason is because they do the intro and the pyro or whatever it is that tells the live crowd that we're about to start, and then they do all that. At least when they bring out the singer, and I've never liked that on any show, any company. It's just tedious. It's fast forward material. You just want to get to the wrestling, obviously. But when it comes to live crowd, it at least you go to a show yourself, and then they do the song, and you know what's coming after that. You get the order of things. I'm not going to say it was any good, the singing, but at least you understand that this is just a prelude to what's coming, and you can get amped up to the right man in the right order. Whereas to bring people up with the actual intro and then do 10 minutes of crap is just you're basically killing the buzz. So we've seen openers, haven't we, where they've actually had to build the crowd back up when they should be absolutely rabid for the first match.
Yeah, well, thankfully, no such problems here, because, as I said, we have gone straight into it. And as if we needed to worry, that the first match, when you talk about getting the crowd on side, the first match it's for the vacant US Tag Team titles, the Fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin, accompanied by Diamond Dallas Page and Big Daddy Dink, and they're taking on the Young Pistols, Steve Armstrong and Tracy Smothers. DDP's wearing a headset mic and shouts at the ring announcer Gary Michael Capetta during their intro. I did at first wonder what was going on, thought something had gone wrong with in typical WCW fashion with the sound system, but no, it was just DDP being obnoxious. Jim Ross explains that the Steiner Brothers had to relinquish these titles when they won the World Tag titles recently, and this is the Young Pistols' first opportunity at any kind of tag team gold in WCW, and they are psyched up for it. The Pistols start off fast until Big Daddy Dinks trips Steve Armstrong, which brings out his brother Brad Armstrong to even up the numbers and increase the mullet quota in the match. This leads to Big Daddy Dink being thrown out of the ringside area. Again, the Pistols are back in charge till Hayes pulls down the top rope and low bridges Smothers. Eventually, Smothers makes a hot tag to Armstrong, but they miss stereo top rope drop kicks on each of their opponents. But they're back up quickly. Smothers clotheslines both Freebirds over the top rope to the floor, and Armstrong lands a crossbody from the top to the floor on both men. They hit a double team move off the top, but they collide with the referee. And at this point, a masked man in pink tights climbs the rope and hits a sort of tornado DDT on both members of the Young Pistols. He's identified as Fantasia by Jim Ross, and therefore I'm thinking it's most likely Brad Armstrong making his second appearance in the match as some sort of inside rib. The referee recovers in time to count the match-winning fall in 10 minutes 19 seconds, and by nefarious means, the Fabulous Freebirds are your new United States champion. Barry, what were your thoughts on this opener?
Really enjoyed it. This was one of the ones that was on the VHS, so I'm used to this one.
Yep.
Though on the VHS, the VHS obviously got released after they realised they're not going to call him Fantasia because they'll probably get sued by Disney. So obviously, by the time you next see him, they end up calling him Bad Street.
Yes.
But on the VHS, they just I wanted to go back and watch the VHS to see this, but they definitely don't call him Fantasia at all during the end of the match.
Right.
So
yeah,
I don't know if they
you only
had it out.
hear the name mentioned once, and it's on his shirt, but you can't really make it out. And this, if Jim Ross hadn't said it, I would not have noticed it on his shirt, basically.
And they do mention it right in the closing at the end of the show, because Dusty goes something like, "Oh, I want to know what the deal is with Fantasia." But on the VHS, they reverse it like a swear in a rap video.
Oh,
and so it's just, I always wondered, what the hell is he saying there? That's really weird. But now I understand. But yeah, great match. The crowd was stupidly hot for the beginning of this. Literally, Hayes does a strut, and then they do a lock-up. Hayes does an arm drag, turns around, does a little wiggle, and then just a schoolboy, and the crowd goes mental. So that tells you how hot they were to start off, and they stayed hot throughout the match. Just a great opener, really. Obviously, title match, lots of hype. They're kind of feuding anyway, but there's no story needed for it to explain the feud. Nice, simple match, great heat, lots of high spots. I mean, then it goes a bit overboard with the ref bump and the run-in, but it all works, and it's a great opener, really.
Cool, yeah. I mean, Liam, we always bang on about the art of the opener. I mean, these two teams are absolutely ideal for that position.
Yeah, they've picked the right personnel. They're familiar with each other. Tag formula slots in nicely for a good opening match as well. So easy to relay, isn't it? With the stamina, no one's going to get too tired because you just do the tagging in and outs and keep that sort of tempo that an opener benefits from. Personally, I'm kind of bummed that the whole Brad Armstrong as Fantasia thing with his brother on the other side and even making an appearance. I'm a little gutted that didn't end up being an actual payoff. That would have been pretty cool. But then I suppose that was never going to stand a chance of happening when apparently they've removed their fucking surnames. They're just called Steve and Tracy now. They don't have surnames anymore.
Yeah, like mid-2000 divas.
Yeah.
Just a first name. That's all you've got.
Whereas these days with Vince, people have surnames and no first names.
Yeah.
No one's allowed two names, are they, AS?
No.
That's right, Liam. Yeah. But do you think that the reason that they had Brad Armstrong come out at the beginning of the match and then come out as Fantasia at the end is just someone having a rib? See how quickly he can
Probably.
get
There's
changed.
Probably to try and swerve Meltzer or something, isn't it? Because that's
I
what
will
these
say he looks
people
a lot
care about.
smaller. He looks a lot smaller wearing the Fantasia get up. I just noticed that.
Yeah.
Clearly wearing the same boots, but just all the black and the feathers.
I hadn't noticed the boots. Of course, the boots are usually the giveaway. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're just plain white boots, but they're still.
Yeah.
They are. He didn't change his boots or anything.
Yeah.
Which I've done before when I've done doubles in rumbles and that. Always make sure I change the boots.
Nice. Mark of a true pro, Barry. Definitely.
Mark of an idiot. Trying to pop himself.
Great stuff. So, but I know what you mean, Liam. That we never had that. With the unmasking of Bad Street and face to face with his own brother who's betrayed him. You could have got some mileage out of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, it would have been decent, but at least I thought the DDTs he hit at the end were pretty damn sweet when he was up on the ropes to add to the impact.
Yeah.
And to think there's people in the modern age that say, oh yeah, these moves are being done to death now. And you look, we're getting, even in '91, we're getting rope hung variations of the DDT.
Yeah, right. We now enter the 4-match portion of the show that was never on the VHS. Match number 2, and we basically do go straight into match number 2. Is Ricky Morton versus Dan Spivey, and I think it's safe to say we all know how this is going to go with the 1 foot and 100-pound size difference and Morton's legendary selling ability. Spivey keeps trying to throw Morton out of the ring, but Morton springs right back into the ring each time. Spivey then catches Morton dropping his head for a backdrop, lands a big DDT followed by a clothesline. Morton fires back with kicks and punches, but they have very little effect on the bigger man. A Spivey leg drop gets a 2 count. Spivey misses a charge into the corner. Morton gets a 2 count with a roll up. Morton misses a drop kick. Spivey misses an elbow drop. There seems to be a little bit of a miscommunication, but Morton ends up in a powerbomb position after getting a knee to the stomach. Spivey lands the powerbomb for the win in a very one-sided 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Just a pretty one-sided demo of Dan Spivey's ability, isn't it? Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go Berry with that one. Sorry.
Yeah. Basically just a squash with a little bit of fire. I did 100% steal this opening of the match a couple of weeks ago, just throwing them out and letting them get straight back in. I really like that start. There's something a bit different. So yeah, I did that a couple of weeks ago after watching this. But yeah, the one thing I did notice when he actually hits him with the razor's edge.
Yeah.
But so a couple of matches before the debut of Diamond Stud.
Yes.
But I did notice on watching it back earlier, you hear him say "trust me" as he's about to hit it. So he obviously hasn't called it or anything. So I'm wondering if that's a rib or something on Scott.
Maybe.
But yeah, you literally he picks him up and just goes, "Trust me," and hits him with the Diamond Death Drop at the time, I guess. And then the botch at the finish, and then Morton is clearly not happy about the foot on the chest pin.
Yes. Yeah, because he basically rolls his shoulder up on 3.1.
3.1. Yeah, he sort of covers his face. He is almost no selling, sort of pushes something off his face and I think swears at him, and then kicks out on 3.1. So yeah, he was not happy with the jobber finish.
Yes, definitely. Liam, your thoughts on this one? Anything to add?
I've got to be honest, I enjoyed it. This was the Dan Spivey because you hear a lot, and I think we've touched on it in previous episodes. There were times where he just couldn't really move around a lot. He was injured or whatever, or he was just kind of there and he knew he was leaving soon, so he didn't really do much. And then when the stars aligned, there was a certain a certain edition of Dan Spivey that was just awesome to watch, and I thought we really found that gear here at certain parts. I do like a good squash like that. But I have to ask, Barry, is when you say about things like where they're saying try, and this is obviously very much your territory with the in ring, makes me want to ask the follow up question: is what is the so if there's a protocol where a wrestler finds themselves with putting their dance partner, so to speak, their opponent into a position, and they're not entirely convinced the opponent's going to be sure how they lay. What do you do? Do you try and call the bump they need to take? Do you say like you're going to have a back bump, or what's the to try and when you are improvising a move like that?
I mean, when I ever improvise, I keep it simple. So if there's any sort of weird bumps or big bumps, weird moves, I always try and sort of talk it through beforehand. But obviously, certainly back in this day and age, a lot of it was improv. So, yeah, I guess it's just a case of, tuck your chin. But yeah.
And I suppose when you got a guy as experienced as Ricky Morton, that you just go, if you're told by someone equally as experienced as Dan Spivey, you're told trust me, and you just go with it. But
Turns out the trust me didn't apply to the cover though.
Not the cover.
That was a
trust
Jake
me,
the Snake trust me, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, I've got to say, anytime I've had to take a bump as a manager, I always like either walk through it or better still do the whole thing like before the show, just because my thinking is I've got to take as good a bump as a wrestler would take, because otherwise it's one of those things that always looks weird of like, well, how come he's been able to get the big 300-pound wrestler up, but he can't get the manager who weighs a lot less than that up because you're sandbagging him or not taking it right. So I think as you say, Barry, it's always important just to know what you're meant to be doing and to make your opponent make the other guy look good, basically.
Yeah, obviously, like if you just go throw in a slam or a suplex or something simple like that, then you don't need to talk that through, and everyone knows how to take that sort of stuff.
Sure,
but, yeah. So anything more interesting, shall we say, and sometimes you do need to talk it through.
Indeed, yes. Right. Well, we have our first little segment of the evening. After this, Tony Schiavone's on the ramp with Tom Zenk, who is dressed in a suit and a very early 90s tie, who he is currently out injured, and Missy Hyatt, who's wearing a suit jacket, a bow tie, and a bra, and appears to have forgotten her blouse. They're still banging on about Missy getting an interview in the dressing room, which we saw at the previous pay-per-view, WrestleWar 91. I think they show us the clip of her being thrown out of the dressing room by Stan Hansen. It all gets a bit of sexual harassment between her and Tom Zenk at the end, where she's talking about like if Tom Zenk's going to be having a shower later on, and it was a different time, Liam.
It was a massively different time, and yet alarmingly, it was only 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Match number 3.
The best thing about that segment, though, is they cut to the crowd afterwards, and it shows some guys that are chanting "Merci, merci," and then one of them stops and starts doing a massive blowjob. And they just keep it all on camera.
Brilliant. Hey, I missed that bit. Match number 3, Tommy Rich takes on Nikita Koloff. Nikita Koloff, now billed from Lithuania, comes out to no music, doesn't get much of a reaction. He returned to WCW after 2 years away, targeting the US champion Lex Luger, saying that Luger stole his title previously. Similar kind of story to the previous match. Rich uses speed to try and gain an advantage, which works till he misses a charge into the corner, hits his head on the turnbuckle. Koloff then takes the match down to his slower pace. Rich misses another move, a springing crossbody block off the middle rope. Koloff lands the Russian sickle clothesline, which is still called the Russian sickle, even though he's from Lithuania now, for a pretty much a squash win in 4 minutes 27 seconds. Just something out there to put Nikita Koloff in our consciousness, I guess. Barry?
Yeah, meh. Basically, this one again, another squash, but this one just didn't hit anywhere near as good as the last one, and literally it's just a clothesline finish out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did look. because obviously I keep banging on about Tommy Rich, former NWA world champion. That I looked up, he was champion for 4 days.
Yep.
And it was literally just basically, I can't remember how they describe it, but basically to try and get the booker over in a dispute over the territory.
Oh, right.
That's all it was. Yeah, he just sort of it bumped up the territory for a bit, and whoever it was managed to sort of take over, and that's the only reason they gave him the title.
There is another rumored reason, but I couldn't possibly go into any further details on that on a podcast because I don't want to get sued.
But that fan from the Missy Hyatt segment could possibly help, right?
Well, no, that's how Missy got into wrestling. I don't know if that's why he got the title, or is this a completely different?
We'll fill you in on the details once we finish the recording.
I was trying not to put too fine a point on Dean's desperate attempt to avoid being taken off the air, whereas I want to see him get like the book thrown at him.
Well, yeah, as we all do.
Anything to add to that match, Liam, or just?
Yeah, no, I agree with the whole. I know we've got a few squashes on it, and you really shouldn't dabble with it too much. If you're going to put on an awesome squash, and I'll go as far as to say that I don't think the Spivey squash was the last good squash on the card, but I'll save that good stuff for later. This wasn't it, the Koloff match, and where we say about it puts you in the presence. Here's the thing, right? And especially now we're seeing not just AEW, but AEW is a good example, and other places are actually starting to show a good use of the rotation of their roster and making sure like not everyone's wrestling appearing all the time, and it really does help keep things fresh. Now, knowing what we know about Koloff and a big angle coming up later on the show, again, we'll cover that when we get there. He doesn't need a match. He could just show up in his street clothes looking to stick it to Luger. Because as we'll remember, as you mentioned earlier, that was the thing going in, and it weren't that long ago that we did Wrestle War 91, was it? We know that the 91, 92, 93 shows are really popular. Now, I don't mind that. It's a shame they will run out at some point, but obviously they're the popular time to do, and we've done a lot of the 91 pay-per-views. Very recently, did Wrestle War, saw the start of the Luger Koloff thing. Obviously, they've got bigger plans afoot for Luger, but given that he's doing that run-in, does he really need a match on the show?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose. Well, when we look at the show overall, I think there are a few too many things that could have been removed. And I suppose the fact that this isn't on the
for all the reasons underlined.
Yeah, the fact that this was not on the VHS as well kind of tells you it's not vital. But yeah, okay. Well, we're back with Tony Schiavone on the ramp, and he introduces this was an era where WCW were creating lots and lots of new, larger-than-life characters, and we see actually this one of the few that actually stuck. Johnny B. Bad, played by Mark Merrow, along with his manager Teddy Long. He's really overdone it with the eye makeup, but they're setting up a feud with another WCW newcomer, PN News, which didn't really capture anyone's imagination. But yeah, this was, and we'll see, as you've already mentioned, Barry, we'll see another character debuted in the Diamond Stud a bit later on. So yeah, this is an era where they're really throwing a lot of new characters at the wall and seeing what sticks. Time for match number 4. It's Dustin Rhodes against Terrence Taylor of the York Foundation, alongside Alexandra York and their bodyguard, Mr. Hughes. Rhodes gets a great reception from the crowd here in Florida. That's where he started out before signing with WCW. It's obviously one of the most famous territories for Dusty Rhodes. The York Foundation had made an offer to Dustin to join them, but he refused, which brought about this match. I don't know about you guys, but I found it inadvertently hilarious listening to Dusty on commentary telling us what he reckons Alexander York's computer is telling Taylor to do. Rhodes is in control of the match till he misses a crossbody block and ends up rolling onto the ramp. Taylor's on offense till he misses a top rope dive where Rhodes' foot connects with Taylor's face. Rhodes lands a great flying clothesline followed by a clunky atomic drop. There's and I thought that a lot of Rhodes' movement in this match looked sort of uncertain. He hits a bulldog moments later, but York has the referee distracted, so there's no count. Mr. Hughes gets up on the apron, puts on a black glove, goes to punch Rhodes, but Rhodes ducks. Hughes punches Taylor instead. Rhodes makes the cover on the fallen Taylor, gets the win in 8 minutes and 5 seconds. What do you make of this one, Barry?
Oh, I think of those 8 minutes and 5 seconds, about 5 minutes of it was the ref being distracted by Alexander York at the end, because that must have been the longest ref distraction ever. But yeah, no, this was, like you said, yeah, obviously this was very early on in Dustin's career, and he was a bit uncertain a lot of the time, very hunched over as well, so not very comfortable in there. Yeah, one little botch, but not covered really well when he goes for the bionic elbow just as Terence Taylor crossbodies him or something, maybe going for the 5-arm, I don't know. But then he manages to sort of catch him in midair and turn it into a headlock. That was pretty good. There was a random bottom rope superplex sort of thing into the ring, which gave Cesaro ideas years later, I guess. One thing I did like in the entrance is when they had the random, obviously local jobbers come out in suits, and Capetta announced them as the newly elected board of directors for the first quarter of 1991.
Yeah, I love that.
In May. Yeah, so they're newly elected for 6 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, it's like a case of that's pretty much a typical botch. But I did have a big soft spot for the commitment to the gimmick, because when you see little details like that, just silly little details of things like entrances and that admittedly, I have to say, is the sort of thing that makes me enjoy wrestling. So seeing that entrance actually tickled me to an extent, even though they just, as you said, they can't get the details right of anything, pretty much. But yeah,
why,
this was,
Liam? Why?
Oh, it was about as because WCW as it gets. But yeah,
see, I want to see them bringing back championship committees to wrestling. That's what I like.
Yeah, but no, if you do championship committees and you reveal the name of one person that's on it, then you've ruined it forever. You can't say they have to be a mysterious, pretty much admittedly non-existent championship committee.
Even if the names are made up.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell people that I am on a championship committee for a wrestling company. They can't prove otherwise. How are they gonna prove otherwise?
Exactly.
Fancy starting a championship committee, fellas?
Yep.
Let's do it.
But I'm wrong in saying that the championship committee aren't the same group of people that hand out the managing licenses that you need.
No, that's different.
I miss them. I miss manager licenses
and referee licenses.
Yeah, obviously.
Now that was a classic rib by Andre at Hammerlock, charging people telling people they needed to bring £25 along for their manager's license.
Does the money go back to the poor sap afterwards?
If it's Andre, probably not.
Yeah. Well, that's not, mate. That's not a rib.
I think it depended on if Andre liked them or not.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably not.
Probably not.
Rib is a very polite term for that. That's actual fraud.
So yeah, the jacket that Taylor wears to the ring is his Red Rooster jacket with a patch on the back. I've noticed, so it's literally his Red Rooster jacket from WWF, but with just a big white sort of patch over half the back that says Terence Taylor instead.
Well, you got to upcycle these things.
Yeah, damn right. Because he probably had to buy it himself in the first place. It's not like he just stole it from
Oh yeah.
WWF. I will not. Also, this finishes off nicely the trifecta, because this match you've got Terence Taylor, match before Tommy Rich, match before that.
Yeah.
What's his
Ricky
name?
Morton.
Ricky Morton. So yeah, give it a few months, and they're all in the stable together.
Very good point. Having all lost on pay-per-view, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah, okay.
And
Liam,
they do. You talked about it, but the Terence Taylor does the spot I really have always hated, where he goes for a double axe handle on someone that's laying down on the floor and takes the boot.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
No, but they always. Arn Anderson was terrible for it.
Yes.
But, yeah, it's just one of those spots I've always hated.
Yes, as much as I love Arn Anderson, I will totally agree with you there that, yeah, that's one of the things he would always do. And yeah, absolutely, it never, ever made any sense whatsoever. No.
So he does fix it in this one, probably because Terry Taylor already tried it.
Yes.
We'll get to that in a bit.
We will. Liam, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, he was green as you like, really, wasn't he? I feel like my fanboying is of the board of directors was pretty much all I had to add to this. But no, it is. I will say this one thing: it's amazing to see from where he is now. And I remember very much at the time, and even quite a few years after, the whole stigma of Dustin Rhodes was, nepotism, over push because of his name. But look at him now; he's well and truly established himself as a very important member of the tapestry of pro wrestling history, isn't he?
Definitely, yes. Okay, match number 5, and yes, this really is on pay-per-view and not WCW Worldwide. It's Black Bart versus Big Josh, and we start the short-lived theme of WCW's animal abuse, because Big Josh comes out with 2 live, probably heavily drugged, muzzled bears who are being forced to walk on their hind paws. Here's a different time, wasn't it?
One of them that pisses the entire way down to the ring.
Does it? Again, I didn't spot this. I really am not the most observant of people, am I? Okay.
Probably because it's petrified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Josh notices as he's doing it. It's like, oh, fucking hell.
So it's a drugged, muzzled, pissing bear.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Black Bart is subbing for an injured Larry Zbyszko. So for those of you unaware, Big Josh is a northwestern lumberjack gimmick being portrayed by the highly experienced Matt Bourne, who is having to portray a highly inexperienced new blood wrestler. And again, Big Josh was one of these new characters that were brought in by WCW at the time. This is a very one-dimensional slugfest. Even Jim Ross declares it as not the prettiest match we'll see here tonight. The crowd are pretty quiet too. Josh hits a double axe handle. Get it? He's a lumberjack axe handle, followed by an earthquake-style sit-down splash for the win in 3 minutes 46. Yeah, it was just sort of there, wasn't it, Barry?
Yeah, pretty much. Slightly. Well, I mean, it was better than the Nikita Koloff match, I'd say, probably, but only just.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just there, wasn't it? I do love the log roll where he just stamps on him.
Yeah.
And the thing that I still haven't quite wrapped my head around it. So, as Big Josh, his finisher was the vertical splash, which I don't think he was big enough to pull off.
Yeah.
Convincingly. And then obviously became Doink, never done it again. And then suddenly he gets replaced by Ray Apollo, who starts using the vertical splash off the top rope as a finish. And it's just one of those. So he started using that. Wait a minute, that's a different guy. That doesn't. Yeah, and he's just one that's always made me go a bit cross-eyed for no apparent reason.
Was Steve Kern Doink in between Matt Bourne and Ray Apollo? Or was he the other?
He was the one of the second Doinks, or maybe the third Doink. Because wasn't Skinner as well?
Yeah, Steve Kern.
One of the
Skinner,
Doinks.
yeah.
Oh, Steve Kern. Yes, it was Steve Kern and I'm blanking on his name. Brooklyn Brawler.
Oh, Steve Lombardi.
Steve Bombardi, yeah, they were the sort of the three doinks, or
Ah,
the second and third doinks, and then yeah, just as he was turning face, he got fired for drugs or something, and then Ray Apollo came in.
can't fire a clown for drugs. Well, they did clearly, but
Oh yeah,
oh.
but yeah, sort of Josh was just sort of he was doing some good moves, but then he was just sort of doing them twice, and it just sort of was killing it. He sort of even just the hip tosses at the beginning, just done 2 in a row, and then he done that weird arm takedown thing, but twice in a row, and it was just a bit weird.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem to. I don't know. What do you think, Liam? I mean, my thinking here is it didn't seem to just have a place on the pay per view, really. But
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I have mentioned our soft spot for Big Josh, but in this situation, it's you can understand. Well, on the one hand, you can understand why the match itself was cut, but let's just look at it from a different angle here. They went to the trouble of having 2 live bears, and the bear handler, has to be paid, and all this expense for an elaborate
yep,
entrance, and it got cut from the home video. So yeah, if you thought it was just a one-off because WCW for this show, I feel like they're gonna rattle them off like a machine gun at this rate. But yeah, it was enough of a
How could
match.
it possibly get worse than that?
Ah,
Ah. Well, we then have a special edition of the Danger Zone with Paulie Dangerously. Again, I stress this is a pay-per-view that people have specifically paid money to watch. Paulie's wearing a cowboy hat. He introduces his guest Stan Hansen. Stan Hansen had his chewing tobacco dripping down his chest. He's unhappy that no one wanted to wrestle him tonight, specifically naming Dustin Rhodes. In typical WCW fashion, Paulie's mic keeps cutting out. I have no idea what the point of this segment was until I then find out that the next match has got the debut of Oz, and I realised that they needed time to set up the $100,000 backdrop for the entrance. And bear in mind, that's $100,000 30 years ago. So, sit tight, everyone. It's time for the debut of Oz, portrayed by Kevin Nash, with Kevin Sullivan dressed up as the Great Wizard. And again, this is like when they called the giant haystacks Loch Ness. They have called him after a place because he is Oz. The wizard has a real live monkey on a leash on his shoulders, which would be dead by the end of this segment.
Yeah.
Which I only discovered this a little while ago, but we'll mention this in a while, I'm sure. We have a cast of extras dressed up as characters from The Wizard of Oz approaching the castle backdrop among tons of dry ice. Oz comes out with an old man mask and a funny hat, along with a luminous green cape. He's billed as 7 feet tall, which is about right for Nash. He literally hits 3 moves in the match, ending it with the always impressive looking helicopter slam for the win in 26 seconds to barely any reaction from the crowd, as Jim Ross calls it, a tremendous debut. Oh, and Nash also has his hair sprayed sort of silver grey. What the fuck was this, Barry?
This was a marketing tie-in because Turner Classic Movies had just gained the rights for The Wizard of Oz.
Ah,
yeah.
You see,
This was about.
I was wondering why that massive wrestling Wizard of Oz fan crossover that we know about.
Yeah, obviously. Well, no, it's more of the massive Turner crossover.
Yes, that makes a lot more sense now.
But you have to remember, welcome to Oz, welcome to Oz, welcome to Oz,
welcome to Oz,
welcome to Oz, welcome to Oz, welcome to Oz, welcome to Oz. And then, do you notice Sullivan is in the ring the entire match?
Yes.
Yeah, just doesn't even bother getting out. Probably because he can't with the monkey and the stupid costume.
Yeah.
See, I like that. It reminded me of like New Jack keeping his entrance music during his matches. Honestly, if you're gonna go outrageous, you might as well go all the way. And it's I can't believe, like, all that time, as you said, he's constantly saying, welcome to us, welcome to us. Why not just have him fucking do it during the match as well? You've started, so you might as well finish. You might as well commit to the bit,
Yeah.
because otherwise it is truly annoying. 'Cause if you do something annoying and half-ass it, it's professional wrestling. You might as well just dial it to 11. They should have
Yeah.
kept
Yeah,
it going. But when I said that I didn't think we were done with good squashes on this, this was what I had in mind, because I
man.
thought Nash from an in-ring point of view, which is all he can really properly control. He looked the part. I mean, like the entrance itself, utterly ridiculous. You could hear the crowd like heckling it and booing it. Couldn't you? Could hear some of the things they were saying during this massive, protracted homage to the fucking film.
Yeah.
And then as he's revealed himself, Nash, and he's he's a 7 foot tall, muscular guy, and despite all this silly bollocks they're doing, it's very clear as he walks to the ring, he's got a mean look on his face. He's caught a bit of attention, I thought. And he's gone in, he's done a good quick squash, great finish. He just looked, he had that zip about him that Dan Spivey had, you kind of need in a squash match. But yeah, it's just a shame it came with all that garbage before it.
Yeah, but also if you're tying this in with acquiring the rights to the Wizard of Oz, why would you want people booing your tribute to the Wizard of Oz? Surely you'd want it to be a babyface. It just didn't make any. Another thing that didn't make any sense with this.
Yeah, and after all that pageantry, he comes down to the ring to the most basic version of Another One Bites the Dust that you ever hear. It was like one of us made it on a Casio keyboard.
Yeah, just it's sort of all weird, all spooky, big, epic wizard, and just a bit of random funky music to
Yeah,
walk
it
down
doesn't
to.
fit the character. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And just to mention this poor monkey,
Yeah.
as we said, a live monkey that he's got on a leash on his shoulder. Thankfully, we don't see it on the broadcast, but and Sullivan's confirmed this in a shoot interview that basically, as they were going back up the ramp, the monkey leapt off his shoulder and went to jump on a member of the audience. So Sullivan pulled the leash back to get the monkey back and accidentally broke its neck and killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, not only did the character not get over, they killed a monkey for it.
Yeah. And it was nearly, it was scared shitless by the pyro before that anyway, so it probably nearly had a heart attack as it was.
And it was 2 days away from retirement.
Poor
monkey.
Poor monkey. The other thing I did like is right at the beginning where you just hear Sullivan go, tell me when? Okay. Enough of one of those live mics. And did you think, I wasn't sure, but it did almost sound like Kevin Nash was doing the voiceover. I don't know, but it sort of had that at least older Kevin Nash twang to it, but I don't know if he was actually doing it, but
he definitely did.
We knew he could talk even back then. Yeah.
But it
that
wasn't
big
only
line
Anderson,
when he revealed himself, he did, definitely.
Yeah, so sort of the narrator type thing, I think was, just Kevin Nash the whole time, which was pretty good.
I'll have to watch that back again. I didn't tweak that. Okay, fair enough. Well, yeah. One of the worst things WCW's ever done, would you say? I mean, I know they've done a lot of shit over the years, but this has got to be right up there with them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Shockmaster, because even with the Shockmaster, even if he hadn't fallen over, he was still just a guy in a fur coat and a spray painted Stormtrooper helmet.
Yeah.
So I don't get what they think of that. But I'd never actually seen Oz before. I'd seen like some photos and that.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I've seen the debut and just him in motion. And he obviously looked awesome in the ring because he's Kevin Nash. But the whole entrance and everything was just got to be up there with one of the worst things I've ever done.
And so any other appearance he made, he was just a generic big guy, wasn't he? Because he made a couple of appearances after this. Well, And
including one tagging up with the Diamond Stud. I found recently.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
as Oz or as Vinny Vegas?
Yeah, Oz and the Diamond Stud. I think it might have even been Big Josh and Tom Zink or something.
Okay.
But yeah,
interesting.
Bit of early outsiders.
Yes. Well, we'll come back to talk about them in a little bit. But so we then go back to Missy Hyatt, who's trying to get an interview in the dressing room. She encounters.
I'll just cut you off there to say this for some reason this segment is back on the VHS.
So Oz isn't, but
Oz
Missy
isn't,
Hyatt.
but Missy Hyatt. So it makes no sense, and this is what always confused me back when I was obviously like a young teenager watching this. Talking about you had an issue earlier with in this match that we didn't see and had not heard about. So I thought, oh, what happened there? But obviously they cut out half the show.
Yes. Oh.
But yeah.
Fair enough.
Carry on.
Yes. Thank you. So yes, Missy Hyatt encounters Terence Taylor. She seems to be obsessed with looking for the Z-Man, even though he's injured and not wrestling. She goes to see if he's in the shower, because obviously that's the way to be looked at as a serious journalist. And she then once again bumps into Stan Hansen, who is curiously wearing boxer shorts in the shower. And he sends Missy packing out of the dressing room, spanking her on the way. And Liam,
yeah,
do you know, right? It was a different time.
It was a different time, and they loved this garbage so much on the previous pay-per-view. They thought they'd do it again.
Yeah,
we were dangerously close to this being a regular running gag on WCW pay-per-views.
And I mean, I would have definitely been buying pay-per-views purely for the Missy Hyatt in the dressing room segments.
To see how many spanks he slips in next, and to hear her talk about it being her life's ambition to interview a male wrestler in the shower.
Yeah. Right, moving on. We go back to we're now on the decent matches because they're included on the VHS, and this is a taped fists match between Brian Pillman and Barry Windham, and there's obviously a big size difference here, but that plays into Pillman's underdog character. Wyndham's hair looks really weird because he's growing it back long after cutting it all off to pose as Sting at Halloween Havoc 1919. It's now at that awkward in-between stage, much like Sting's own hair would get a few years later. The first big move sees Wyndham go to the top rope and get drop-kicked off it by Pillman. He falls to the floor. Pillman connects with a fist from the top rope to the floor, which connects with Wyndham's head. Wyndham then pulls Pillman into the ring post head first. Wyndham climbs back into the ring, and then by this point, both men are bleeding as a result of those specific moves. They're also lighting up each other's chest with loud chops. They then have a clash of heads, and both men go down. Pillman goes up to the top rope. Wyndham shoves the referee out of the way, low blows Pillman. I don't know what the ref's complaining about because we've already established there's no disqualification in a taped fist match. Wyndham hits a trademark superplex, and that amazing sort of float over cover that he does in one fluid motion, and he gets the win in a mere 6 minutes and 8 seconds. This could have gone longer, couldn't it, Barry?
Yeah, definitely. But why was this a tape fist match?
Why was this a taped fist match? There was a reason.
There was no reason. It's literally because Dusty was booking and wanted pretty much every match to have a gimmick.
Okay.
Pretty much no other reason. From what I found out, they were feuding, and I mean, this wasn't even the end of the feud. The feud ends with the loser leaves town, which
the Clash of the Champions,
Pillman being the yellow dog and all that stuff. But yeah, this was just for the hell of it. Yeah, let's just throw a gimmick on it.
And the yellow dog was a mask gimmick that Dusty Rhodes had done in Florida, wasn't that right? Yeah.
Had he actually done the? I know it was obviously based on the Midnight Rider gimmick, but
there was definitely a yellow dog somewhere.
Yeah, I think
yellow dog or something.
Yeah, there was another one, but it's a gimmick that's been done a million times. Because while I was looking up, Thomas Rich, he'd done it back when he got. Which actually ties back to an earlier match as well, when he lost the loser leave town to DiBiase in, I think it was World Class. And then he came back as Mr. R, which is a really inventive name.
Yeah.
And so DiBiase was all like, oh, yeah, that's him. So he had a match with him and then goes to unmask him. Thomas Rich appears at ringside, unmasks him, and turns out to be new guy Brad Armstrong, who then, in the distraction, pins DiBiase as a complete rookie and wins the title, which was a nice variation on it. But again, so
and I've
Brad
just
Armstrong
found,
under a mask, who'd have thunk
right,
it?
and and I've just found as well that there's another yellow dog masked wrestler in a virtually identical costume to the yellow dog that Brian Pillman portrayed. Just trying 1984. I'm just trying to find the actual from Championship Wrestling from Florida, and it was portrayed by Barry Windham.
That makes
And
it
he
even
has
better.
there's a match here that he has against Black Bart. So it's all coming together.
Black Bart, who I'd never even heard of before, but apparently he trained JBL. So
yeah, he's just one of those sort of journeyman wrestlers, really.
Yeah. But good match this. Apart from the pointlessness of the gimmick. Yeah, I've got in my notes about the refs. Like they have to do a ref distraction for the low blow, but clearly it's no DQ apparently. So
which they mentioned in the commentary right at the beginning.
Yeah, but then there's a few matches where they sort of don't really follow what the match actually is. But we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah. And then the point of the tape fist is to punch your opponent in the head loads, which they don't do a lot. And even to the point where Pillman does get bust open, but by the ring post. And then Giggs blades blatantly on camera as well.
Yeah, I think the Wyndham bleeding is meant to have been from that top rope fist.
Yeah, from the punch, there is that one. But then the only punches from Wyndham seem to come after the match, which I did like. Low blow, superplex, pin him, and then I'll start punching him. Really rub it in.
But yeah, and I mean this, and I think this is a theme that we'll get in a few other matches as well. But surely they could have knocked some of the other matches that have been earlier on off and give these guys an extra sort of 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, but no, it's a pay-per-view, so you need 12 matches and 3 interview segments and 4 backstage segments But 12 matches.
12 matches. Yeah.
What is it? 1 PW.
Hey, at least it finished on time. Liam, your thoughts on the tape fist match?
Was it just me, or was this hideously one-sided for a proper feud match? Pillman got a spanking here.
Yeah,
He
pretty much.
really wasn't taken seriously much, was he?
No.
It's a shame.
And then loses the follow-up match,
Yeah. Beating pillar to post as the plucky underdog at Wrestle War, then goes through this, has to be subjected to a fair amount more, if I remember correctly. Then finally got a little bit of a push with the light heavyweight thing and taking it a bit seriously. Then Bill Watts comes in and brings that all down. Are you sure this wasn't being booked by WWE? It's like the disdain for someone who's not 6 foot tall is like uncanny.
Yeah, it's I mean, it was good and intense, but I think you spot on that it was very, very one-sided. Yeah,
and yet not a squash at all. It didn't come like a squash. It was like you said, thinking about it, it was very one-sided, but at the same time, he showed a lot of fire and stuff, and those chops. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we then got the ramped Diamond Dallas Page. He's back again with his Diamond Mine talk show, and this is on pay-per-view. He then introduces a video package interview with Sting and Luger talking about their upcoming match with their friends, the Steiners. which is a bit of a strange place to put that segment in. But he then introduces his newest client, the Diamond Stud, aka Scott Hall, with a kiss curl and a toothpick. There's certainly elements of Razor Ramon to it, without the accent, obviously. And isn't it telling that on this show, both Hall and Nash have debuted new characters in WCW that didn't get over at all, and they had to go to the WWF, be packaged correctly as Razor Ramon and Diesel to get over massively there before they could return to WCW as stars. And yeah, but I'll start with you, Barry, and come to you, Liam. But yeah, what is it about WCW at this time where they can't create stars, whereas WWF can?
Well, to be fair, WCW pretty much could never create stars.
Apart from Goldberg, probably.
Goldberg and DDP, but he took about 10 years or 5 years or whatever to get over.
Yeah.
But yeah, apart from that, yeah, they never really could create stars. So, this is half of the course, really.
Could you argue Sting was a star created by WCW, Liam?
Yeah, he kind of got there in the NWA days, and then he was there like oven ready. Sorry for the poor expression, but he was oven ready for the WCW era, really, wasn't he? So yeah, I wouldn't even go that far. But no, for the most part, their whole mentality was like, how do we do what they're doing? Up north. How do we take this film, this Wizard of Oz film, and turn that into a great wrestler? They were reactors. They weren't proactive in any way whatsoever, and that was the big problem.
But you look at this era of like the spring summer of '91, because and I vividly remember this because I remember this is when WCW magazine came out for the first time, and I remember there was like an article about all these new characters, and you had, as we've mentioned, the Diamond Stud, and you had Oz and Johnny B. Bad, PN News. I think Stunning Steve Austin was another one, although not a character in the sense that the others were. Van Hammer, Black Blood, which was Billy Jack Haynes under a mask. Big Josh that we've mentioned. You also had, I think about a little while later, you had Hercules under a mask as the Super Invader.
Arachnaman, I guess.
Yeah, Arachnaman till they got sued. But all of these characters, these like larger than life WWF style characters, and really the only one that stuck and was any kind of a success was probably Johnny B. Bad.
Mm. But yeah, just coincidental, just as Dusty started booking, maybe, possibly, definitely. But yeah, this was, I know in Meltzer's review of this show, he said something along the lines of, like, this is where it really turned the corner, and like, if we wanted to see WWF, we'd go to their show.
Yeah.
So this is when they really started to go sort of over the top with the the more hokey characters and everything.
Yeah, and
this
I
is really the turning point.
Absolutely, yeah, and I guess this is, like you said, this is trying. I mean, you touched on this a moment ago, Liam, that this is trying to out WWF the WWF as opposed to being an alternative product for people who aren't fans of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we see it throughout history because a decade and a half later, you've got NWA TNA that really caught a little bit of fire. It was never going to catch WWE, especially after WWE was monopolised and gone on the market as well, like as a public traded company.
Yeah.
No one was going to touch him. No one will touch him to a certain extent. They've got a certain juggernaut about them now. But TNA had that cool vibe. They had something with the X division, Ultimate X, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. They had such a thing going on. America's Most Wanted, and over the course from their absolute peak in that period, a couple years later, they were doing everything WCW was doing on this show and making the same mistakes WCW made over the course of a decade that we've been lambasting here for 105 episodes.
Yeah.
And that's always when people say, oh, look, AEW's dropped like a 50,000 viewers on this episode, or AEW's done a match that wasn't like as good as any given match in Japan or whatever. It's like, no, you got to look at the big picture here. If they just keep doing what they're doing, we've got an ecosystem in wrestling.
Yeah.
And that's all we can ask for, regardless of any wars or whatever. We just want a healthy situation, and that's what we always lament about WCW. They didn't see the forest for the trees, and they completely did themselves in. And the only way they ever had any serious success was selling their soul with the creative control contracts. So because of that short-sightedness, it was never going to work.
Okay, we will move on to match number 8.
Sorry to depress you there. I've really tanked this jovial podcast, haven't I?
But it's very, very true. It is, it's a very good insight. Thank you. It is time now for the stretcher match between the Battle of the Giants, Sid Vicious v Elegante. It's not billed as a technical classic. What it is billed as, however, is a stretcher match, whereas Gary Michael Capetta explains the loser must leave the ring on a stretcher. I'll just reiterate that in case you missed it. The loser must leave the ring on a stretcher. Elegante brings the stretcher to the ring with him, and he even struggles to do that. There's no way he'll fit on that stretcher if he loses anyway, given that the stretcher is about 6 foot long and he's 7'7". It's also important to note that this was Sid's last match in WCW before moving on to the WWF, where he debuted as Sid Justice, the special guest referee at SummerSlam 91. So he clearly doesn't give a single solitary fuck about this match. Elegante, his technique in selling moves is interesting to say the least. Kind of putting facials that look like he's either shat himself or put his fingers in the plug socket every time he gets hit. Sid charges into the corner, is met with a big boot and gets pinned with the claw hold in just 2 minutes 13 seconds. And the match then ends because he got pinned in a stretcher match and didn't leave on a stretcher. And then One Man Gang and Kevin Sullivan come out and beat up Elegante, hitting him with a stretcher and throwing powder in his eyes. But at least they didn't hit him with a dead monkey, I suppose. What the fuck was this, Barry?
This was, like you said, Sid not wanting to do the stretcher job. Basically, I think from my research, his contract didn't run out until September.
Right.
But they'd kind of agreed to let him out of his contract and go to the WWF. But it's obvious, so he didn't want to do this match. But why even book the match? Why book this match at all, to be honest? Stretcher match or not. But by sound of it, obviously he wasn't going to turn up, but they were saying, if you don't turn up, we won't let you out your contract early and you'll be screwed. And WWF, I mean, Vince has always been big on like carrying out your commitments and that.
Yeah.
So they were like, no, you need to do this match, even ignoring the fact that if you don't, you won't be able to come to us. So that, but obviously back in the day, doing the stretcher job, as they said, was a real death to your career. So he didn't want to do that, but they still called it a stretcher match. And then just pinned him after 2 minutes.
I mean, they could have just build it as a Battle of the Giants. And
yeah, exactly. They could have done so much different, but they booked it, so they did it.
Yeah.
But he turned up, he done it, he sold a clothesline pretty well. And
I mean, he sold it better than Hercules sold his match with Sid on, if you ever seen that match.
Yeah.
Was that from
I think he did get
match,
up.
I think?
Yeah, he did get up about the same speed after the match, but you just don't see it because One Man Gang's already come to the ring.
Indeed, yes. Oh,
yeah.
Good old Sid. Right.
Yeah.
Liam, do you want to add anything to that, or should we just move on to the next match?
Oh man, what else could I possibly? This was infamous. This fucking match, wasn't it?
I was more say the one thing I did like was obviously Elegante comes out, starts trying to drag the stretch of the ring, so it goes behind him and nearly falls off the ramp. So he grabs it with his other hand, it doesn't, nearly falls over again, and just without missing a beat, he just picks up the stretch and carries it to the ring. Yeah. So I'll give him that. That was good.
Yeah. Do you know what El Gigante's selling reminds me of? To go back to that topic, is when my daughter, when she was about 2 or 3, she had sour food for the first time. Her facials were very much like El Gigante selling.
That or Jean-Claude Van Damme getting powder in the eyes at the end of Bloodsport. Yeah, and if you don't know that cell, that's basically the cell he does.
Yeah, of course I've not seen it.
It is clearly the best Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. Go and watch it now, or after this.
After I was going to say, yeah, after this. Right, match number 9. It's a steel cage match. It's the Battle of Doom. It's Butch Reed versus Ron Simmons. So
the Thunder Doom.
The Thunder Doom. Match. Now, when we it was Wrestle War 91 was the last pay-per-view, wasn't it, Liam? Because that was where they split up.
That was the split, yeah.
And then literally moments after they've split up, they interview a kid that's a competition winner and ask him who his favourite wrestlers in WCW are, and he says Doom while looking at the ring broken-hearted.
Yeah, you need that Simpsons meme, don't you? That Simpsons meme where they pause it. Look, here's the moment where his heart exploded.
Yeah. Oh man. See, never worked with children and animals. WCW have proven that in 2 successive pay-per-views. So both men come out to their old Doom theme tune. There's a small sort of shark cage that Teddy Long must enter, which will be hanging above the ring to prevent him from interfering. Long even gets his own entrance. Simmons played American football at Florida State University, so gets a good reaction from the crowd here in St. Petersburg. It starts off fast with fists flying. Reed gets thrown into the steel cage, but Simmons charges at him, misses, and crashes into the cage himself. Simmons is now bleeding from the forehead. Reed then rams Simmons' forehead into the cage repeatedly. And I've got to say, I don't know what you guys think, but I got to say, as a veteran of many cage matches, Dusty Rhodes, I think, is actually great on commentary here, adding insight of what it's like to be in a cage match. And they also mentioned that Reed is a cage match veteran and Simmons is not. Reed is largely dominating this match. He hits a pile driver on Simmons, only gets a 2 count. He lands a top rope shoulder block, but Simmons gets his foot on the bottom rope to break the count. Reed goes for a splash, but Simmons gets his knees up. Simmons now has a second wind and is on offense till Reed cuts him off with a high knee. And in fact, Dusty says on commentary, each time Simmons goes on the offense, Reed cuts him off. Long throws a steel chain down to Reed. He tries to punch Simmons with it, but Simmons ducks, picks Reed up and lands a spine buster for a pinfall pretty much out of nowhere in 9:39. So they gave him a little bit of time, I suppose. What did you think of this one, Barry?
Yeah, it was a pretty good cage match. I mean, pretty simple and short in theory, like nearly 10 minutes, but for a sort of feud blow-off match, which was one of their first matches anyway, after like 2 months after splitting up. But yeah, it was pretty good. Obviously the cage wasn't enough of a gimmick, so they needed the shark cage as well for Long. And obviously, if you've got a manager up in a cage, they're going to just drop a foreign object into the ring for him. That's what you do. But then that was completely pointless because it just misses and hits his finish, and that was it. But yeah, so apart from the whole pointless Teddy Long thing, I enjoyed it.
To me, I mean, Ron Simmons can be, a really intense wrestler when he wants to be. Just especially for a match between 2 very successful long-term tag partners, it just seemed to me to not quite have that intensity that I was expecting.
Yeah, it seemed like it wasn't really the blow-off, and at the same time, it didn't seem like it was the first match and they were sort of getting all the frustration out. It just seemed like a random, not much hatred between them, I guess.
Yeah.
I did like the fact they all came out to the same music, though.
The same music, that was.
And I'm not sure if they cut it each time or if it sort of kicks in again after that little bit, but it sort of perfectly looped round
It did,
for the
yeah. I
intro
think,
for each one.
yeah, I think they just replayed it again, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It did flow very nicely. Yeah, Liam, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, there were two things in particular that tickled me about this match. Number one was when Ted Long makes his own entrance. He comes out pretty confident, nothing's gonna flap him, and then he gets to within arm's reach of this giant shark cage that he's got to go inside, that's been advertised heading into the belt that, for this match you are going to be hung above the ring in this cage, and he's suddenly decided, oh no, I don't want to do this.
Nope.
A good idea would have been maybe to refuse to go in the cage like before you've got to the arena. But it's the way he's just as if nothing's going to happen to him right until he gets like within two
I'm
feet
going
of
to
the
walk
cage.
right
Yeah.
up to the cage and then refuse.
And then nope it when there's like 5 referees waiting to shovel me in there. Uh
But yeah, saying going back, Simmons just didn't seem that confident, comfortable being a face as well. I think that sort of took away from it as well.
Well, they had to do
Sort of.
something because like everyone's leaving the promotion. They've got
Yeah.
to push someone, and
Yeah, 'cause
as
it
we
was
find
Drew
out, their
Plus.
next pay-per-view they're going to lose even more big stars. So
Yeah.
they're in a bit of a weird situation though. So, but the other thing I really liked about this is it's called the Thunder Doom cage match. It's pretty clear that it's a very bog standard regular steel cage. The
Yeah.
Thunder Dome they'd used a couple of times. There's a whole thing where it's electrified at the top so you can't get out. It's a bit more of a elaborate cage. We've seen them use the one with the ringside area and all that. But the thing with this is that
and the top of it slopes inwards, so you can't can't climb out.
and
Yeah.
they've got no interest in using any sort of special cage for this. They've probably used up all their budget on the Oz entrance, to be fair. But
Yeah.
they just want to use a regular cheap cage. But because the tag team were called Doom, and because the other cage match they've used in the past is called Thunderdome, of course they have to run the pun. So I
It's a pun,
appreciate that
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, definitely appreciate the pun. Go for it. Knock yourselves out, lads.
We
I
then
did
see.
like the fact that they made a big point of Simmons being Burt Reynolds' favourite wrestler. And then they mentioned that Jason Hervey's there again.
Good
Because
old
why
Jason
not?
Hervey. Why not? Yeah. Because he's there to watch his girlfriend try and sexually harass the men in the showers.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Oh, saying that, going back to the Diamond Stud thing, where they basically announce, yeah, we're going to go from town to town and get hot girls to come into the ring and strip him off, and then take you backstage and not mention anything else. But yeah, that was definitely clearly, a different time, as you like to say.
Indeed. Yes, we then see a video package previewing the next match, which is, for all the time, it's unusual. It's faces v faces, friends v friends, a match of Sting and Lex Luger v the Steiner Brothers. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, the music they used sounded like something you'd hear off a Rocky training montage, like a
video in the next couple of weeks.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So
look out for that.
I look forward to it. So match number 10 is the WCW World Tag Team titles on the line. Sting and Lex Luger take on the champions, the Steiner Brothers. So Luger comes out wearing the new design US belt. He's the US champion. Obviously, it's not on the line here. Interestingly, the tag team belts still say still say NWA and not WCW on them. All 4 men shake hands and away we go. We start off with Luger versus Rick. Rick bounces off Luger spectacularly on a simple body check, shoulder tackle. Luger then gets a 2 count with a power slam. Rick fires back with a German suplex and a Steiner line for a 2 count of his own. Luger fires back with a clothesline of his own. This one is starting off intensely. Luger press slams Rick, tags in Sting. He clotheslines Rick over the top rope and hits a spectacular running vault over the top rope to the floor. Sting then hoists Rick over his shoulder and rams him upside down into the corner, taking the move out of the Steiner's usual playbook. We've seen that move before. Poor Takayuki Iizuka will probably never forget it. Scott gets tagged in. He immediately hits a double underhook tiger driver followed by a tilt-a-whirl slam. The crowd are absolutely loving this. Sting catches Scott, drops him throat first over the top rope. Scott recovers, hits a belly-to-belly superplex on Sting. Luger gets tagged in, hits a power slam on Scott. He signals for the torture rack, but Scott counters it with a Russian leg sweep. He makes a blind tag to Rick, who nails Luger from behind with a top rope bulldog for a 2 count. Sting then hits Rick from behind with a top rope drop kick, and tempers are starting to flare between the friends. Scott goes for a tombstone pile driver on Sting, but Sting reverses it. Rick makes the save. The referee tries to put Rick back on his tag rope. Luger comes charging in, and both Rick and the ref get knocked out of the ring. Luger and Rick continue to fight at ringside while Sting and Scott are left in the ring. Sting hits a Stinger splash, and we then see Nikita Koloff run down the ramp with his chain wrapped around his arm just as Luger's on the ramp getting back onto his tag rope. Sting sees Koloff running down, pushes Luger out of the way and eats the chain-assisted clothesline from Koloff himself. Koloff runs to the back, and Scott, not really aware of what's happened, makes the cover on Sting for the pinfall in 11 minutes and 9 seconds, and Sting has been busted open by the chain shot from Koloff. So all of that action packed into 11 minutes, 9 seconds. And it's worth noting that this match won Pro Wrestling Illustrated's Match of the Year award for 1991. Berry, how did it rate with you?
Pretty good. I mean, I don't know exactly what other matches were going on that year, except I suppose 91. So I would have said Warrior Savage was probably better than this. But yeah, no, it was definitely a good one. It's a really weird psychology match, not even counting it as face-face. And obviously the finish really takes away from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, really great match. Yeah, I mean, starting off the whole power v wrestling sort of thing, and sort of Rick managed to out-wrestle Luger. But the power coming back, and the gorilla press was brilliant on Rick's not exactly a small guy, is he?
No.
Yeah, and then the Canadian backbreaker running into the corner thing, which has always looked really nasty.
Yeah.
And I've only ever seen it done in person once, and that was Doug Williams on Scarlett. So yeah, doing it on a woman probably isn't going to be quite as painful, is it? Except for she fractured her pubis.
Ow.
So yeah, just not a nice move to take. But yeah, then Scott comes in, proper house of fire, hitting all his greatest hits, and the crowd's going mental for it. And then this is the point I noticed they're doing not only clean breaks but clean tags. So as much as they're holding on to them, tagging in their partner, they're not holding them for any strikes or anything, or feeding them into them. They're literally tagging, getting out as the other guy gets in. So really keeping the face. And then the bit the commentators miss is obviously Rick gets a blind tag in and hits the bulldog. But Sting, as he said otherwise, doesn't see the tag, so thinks Rick's just come in and cheated. So that's why he hits a drop kick off the top.
Oh, right.
Because then he says after there was no tag. And then obviously that's when it all starts breaking down. Then the tombstones happen, and obviously Rick has to come in and make the save for that. And that's when Luger comes in, which is a great ref bump. I really like that ref bump with just steamrolling over him. And yeah, then the finish happens, and it just sort of takes away from it.
Yeah, because that ref bump feels a lot more realistic than the usual thing where the ref just happens to be in the completely wrong place that he'd never stand in ordinarily.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so that was a nice one.
And it didn't feel at all like a getting all your shit in kind of match, because they're hitting lots of big moves one after the other. But it just, and also the crowd are loving it because sometimes with a face-to-face match, the crowds are split and don't know who to cheer. But I remember at the time just the fact that these two teams are fighting each other. It was like, well, this doesn't normally happen. Why, a bit, I suppose, a bit like Hogan Warrior in a way, where there's that buzz that you've got two people who aren't supposed to face each other because that isn't how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Liam, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm wondering to myself, is this the best tag team match of all time to not use traditional hot tag formula? There's not too many other matches that go against the typical grain like this that are this good. And for all the other reasons that you guys already mentioned, I won't repeat them, but yeah, they're all valid. And just the fact they don't use tag formula presumably because there's a face versus face thing, and they've just managed to make it work by just going at each other and trying to win the damn match. But yeah, this is a very considering the personnel involved. You got four of those people that are right up at the top of when you think of this early 90s, and we conveniently leave out all the crap from our memories and we just think of the good part.
Yeah.
You think of these four, you think of Big Van Vader, you think of the Hollywood Blondes, and those latter three would come a little bit later, but these four are right there. They're like the pillars of this era going at it in a great tag match. I love it.
Yeah. And what about the finish? I mean, presumably it's to protect all the baby faces and to develop a new storyline. But
yeah, they want to transfer it, don't they? They want to transfer the Luger thing onto Sting with Koloff, because as we find out, they do finally have a plan for Luger with Flair, even though they've kind of like they've done it non-stop in like what 87, 88, 90, and every time he blew it and he developed a choke artist tag. And as it turned out, he wouldn't even get to win the big one over Flair this time either. But that was their plan, and that's why Sting was going to step in.
What's the plan then, that Luger would turn heel and win the belt from Flair?
I don't think so.
Great American Bash.
I don't think a heel turn was on the horizon until necessity got in the way.
Or did they just turn him heel because Flair had gone?
I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure the heel turn was like, oh fuck, we better.
No, it was a weird double turn as well, wasn't it? Because obviously Wyndham was heel at the time, and then Luger managed to turn heel on him. So it wasn't really by necessity. It's not like they needed a heel in the match.
Yeah, they just flipped.
But, yeah.
Okay. So backstage, Tony Schiavone catches Nikita Koloff returning from the ring, where he says Sting was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then Schiavone has this classic look of alarm and panic on his face as Sting comes from the ring off camera, runs into Koloff and attacks him. They brawl out into the car park before Koloff decides to bugger off for his own safety, basically.
Because there's a chair outside, obviously.
Because there's a chair outside, yes. Those pesky chairs they get everywhere. Yeah. And then we move on to match number 11. Yep, 11.
Before we do, I will say, you have to remember this is 1991. So at this point in time in WCW, we knew the deal with Sting and Luger.
We did.
Yeah, we actually knew what the deal was, and they were just friends.
They were on the same page. They ran a gym together in Atlanta. Yeah, it was all good.
Yeah, all good.
And as they have proven with the clean tags. Thank you for making a very valid point there.
Yeah.
So match number 11 is for the World Television title, and it's Bobby Eaton challenging the World TV champion Arn Anderson. And this is Eaton's first singles wrestler title, first title opportunity as a singles wrestler in WCW. Obviously, he's enjoyed tremendous success in the tag division as half of the Midnight Express. Jim Ross says he thinks Arn Anderson's the greatest television champion of all time. Dusty Rhodes then says the exact same thing, almost word for word. Given the pedigree of both men and the fact they're good friends in real life too, this should be excellent. Eaton drops Anderson with his big right hand within the opening few seconds. He goes up top. He's intercepted by Anderson, who throws Eaton face first onto the ramp, sort of like a rocket launcher, but without anyone to land on. Anderson then goes for a pile driver on the ramp, but Eaton backdrops him instead. Eaton goes back up top, lands an axe handle. Later on, Anderson rams Eaton's knee into the ring post to slow him down, take away his aerial offense. Eaton's hopping on one leg, but still firing right hands at Anderson. It's all happening at quite a slow pace, but it's classic wrestling storytelling. Anderson hits his spine buster, but only gets a 2 count. Anderson then goes to the middle rope for an axe handle, but Eaton intercepts him with a punch to the midsection, followed by his classic swinging neck breaker. He slams Anderson, hobbles up to the top rope. Just as he's about to land a move, a bandaged up Barry Windham comes down the ramp, but before Windham can do anything, a similarly bandaged up Brian Pillman comes out to intercept him. Eaton then hits that amazing Alabama Jam top rope leg drop for the 3 count to become the new WCW World Television Champion in 11 minutes and 50 seconds. So what were your thoughts on our semi-final, our semi-main event, Barry?
Brilliant. Probably, well, maybe not the match of the card after the tag match, but certainly up there. Yeah, obviously it's a shame that Eaton's music gets dubbed over.
Yeah.
On the, well, yeah, because as it started, because they sort of don't fully mute it and they turn it down a lot, I thought it was when you had Dave Penzer on, he was saying about the mic, the ring announcer mic was only for in-house. They didn't have it linked up to the truck and that.
Yeah.
I thought that's what was going on because I thought, oh, that sounds awful. And then I realised it's just they're dubbing over the good music. I did love how Dusty was referring to Eaton as a rookie, just but basically as a singles rookie, as he was putting it. He's been a tag wrestler for all this time, but now he's just starting off as a singles wrestler, and he's basically a rookie when it comes to singles. So that was great. And then he goes and ruined it by referring to the rocket launcher onto the out onto the rampway as a bump. But okay, we're using that terminology now, are we? But yeah, other than that, yeah, all great. Anderson selling the shit out of the right hand the entire match.
Yeah, and what I loved about that was that right at the beginning of the match, Jim Ross,
literally the first thing.
mentions it and bang, straight away it happens.
Yeah, but then you have to watch out for Anderson's left hand and his DDT.
Yeah,
which is exactly what you have to watch out for Michael Hayes, his left hand and his DDT.
Very true. Although I don't know how good Arn Anderson is at moonwalking. No.
Or how good Michael Hayes is at spinebustering. But yeah. Oh, and then Eaton's cell, when he goes for a suplex on Arnie, his knee gives out and he sort of collapses sideways with it. That's a brilliant little touch. I really like that because he still hits the move, but sort of only half-heartedly and sort of sells it more than Arn does, and Arn gets straight back on top of him.
Yeah.
But it's just, it almost looks like a botch, but it's a controlled, I'm injured sort of botch. So a worked botch, if you will.
Yes.
That was really nice. And then, going back to what I was saying about Arn doing the stupid axe handle when they're laying on the floor.
Yeah.
He almost does it, but he does it with a Vader bomb onto the knees, so it kind of works. And then follows it up with his patented axe handle off the middle rope, shot in the gut, flip bump.
Flip bump, yeah.
Which I love.
I seem to remember with the Vader bomb, he doesn't spin Bobby Eaton 180 degrees, which doesn't seem to make any difference because of the way he lands anyway. But it's a bit
Possibly.
of an
I know for the actual finish, Bobby hits the spinning neck breaker, but they have to pick him up and slam him because he's the wrong way around for his leg drop.
Yeah.
But the finish is great because it's sort of a 5-part pop that keeps building. Because he goes up for the jam and the crowd come up. Then Wyndham comes out and the crowd come up a bit more. Then Pillman cuts him up. The crowd goes really up. hits the Alabama Jam, crowd goes up even more. 1, 2, 3, crowd goes mental.
Yeah.
It's a great finish with the sort of the building pop at the end, and I really like that.
Yeah, because they're expecting disappointment, and then it doesn't happen, and they actually get what they're after. Yeah,
expecting the screw job, especially in a title match like this, and a clean finish. Wow.
Yeah, especially given the history of the Horsemen.
Exactly.
Who will do anything to keep their belts. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Liam, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a good match. It seemed to be in first gear for quite a while, but yeah, the finish got them where they want to be. Normally, you see with a lot of matches, it builds up to a steadier degree, but they spent a long time being methodical, being old school, and then you got the finish at the end, so fair enough. But it's funny to think that Bobby Eaton's big singles moment, it was only a couple of weeks, wasn't it? And he was dethroned by a debutant called Stunning Steve Austin.
Steve Austin, yeah. Yeah,
but he was
also,
he'd already knew about his match coming up with Flair before this, so he'd been training hard for his Flair match, and then this was, I don't know if this was a little bit of a reward building up to it, or this was always planned, but because you covered that, didn't you, recently?
We did, yeah, Clash 15, yeah. And I mean, I know we always said Bobby Eaton was never like a body guy, but he does look in tremendous shape for this.
Yeah, he's really slimmed down for his Flair match.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So we're about to get ready for the main event. Tony Schiavone's backstage. He catches a word with the Japanese contingent, Hiro Matsuda, who always appears to be on these things because he's fluent in English and Japanese. Says that they're going to bring the belt back to Japan. So let's explain things here. This is one of the most WCW things ever. Are you sitting comfortably? So when WCW and New Japan had their super show in the Tokyo Dome a few months before, or as it was called in Japan, Starrcade in Tokyo Dome, the main event was Ric Flair v Tatsumi Fujinami. And in that venue, Fujinami won the match by pinning Ric Flair. In the US, the match was presented as a WCW title defense, which Flair won retrospectively by disqualification because Fujinami had thrown him over the top rope prior to pinning him. In Japan, it was presented as a defense of both the NWA World title and the WCW World title because they regarded those two things as two separate championships, both of which were held by Ric Flair. So in Japan, Fujinami had become the NWA World Champion in the Tokyo Dome, and this match was to reunify the NWA and WCW titles in Japan, but was just a regular world title defense for Flair in America, as the two titles were represented by the one physical belt, which of course was the big gold belt that Flair took with him to the WWF a few months later and caused chaos. So this is for the NWA and WCW world titles, but it's just billed on this show as for the WCW world title between Tatsumi Fujinami and Ric Flair. And unless it's a network edit, Flair doesn't come out to his usual music. Fujinami does not have a title belt around his waist. Tiger Hattori from New Japan is the referee in the ring, and Bill Alfonso is at ringside as a sub-ref if needed. So Flair lands some of his trademark chops. Fujinami locks Flair in a bow and arrow hold, then also puts him in a Boston Crab and an Indian Deathlock to put across his mastery of submission holds. The crowd seems to be very quiet here, presumably because they don't really know who Fujinami is. Maybe also because Flair's usually the heel, but as the American, they're being prompted to cheer him here. Fujinami knocks Flair to the floor. Flair then drops Fujinami groin first over the guardrail at ringside. Back in the ring, Flair clamps on the figure four leg lock and the crowd come alive for the first time in the match. Fujinami escapes and locks on the Scorpion Deathlock as invented by his fellow countryman Riki Choshu. Fujinami gets a 2 count with a side suplex. Flair throws Fujinami to the floor again, goes to throw Fujinami into the guardrail but gets reversed. Flair hits the steel face first and now he is bleeding from the forehead. Yep, it's another match with blood. Flair is now in trouble. They're back in the ring. Fujinami slams Flair off the top rope before locking in the octopus hold in the center of the ring, attempting the submission win, but Flair escapes the hold after about 10 seconds or so. Both men then collide on a shoulder tackle. Flair falls out of the ring onto the ramp. Fujinami falls to the floor. Flair picks him up for a slam, but buckles under the weight. Fujinami gets a very close 2 count. You can hear the crowd audibly gasp at. He gets another 2 count with a small package. A rolling prawn hold gets a 2 count as Flair kicks out. And as Flair kicks him out, he inadvertently kicks Fujinami into the referee Tiger Hattori. Flair then rolls Fujinami up with a handful of tights as Bill Alfonso enters the ring to make the 3 count to regain the world title, depending on your perspective, in 18 minutes, 39 seconds. So a bit of an out of nowhere finish, but we have now got one champion for both the NWA and WCW for the time being, at least. Barry, what was your take on the main event?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, this is from watching this when I was younger. This, along with Liger at Starrcade as well, got me interested in all the funkier submission moves. Obviously, we had the bow and arrow in this, the octopus, the Indian deathlock, all the fun stuff. So yeah, this is what really turned me on to sort of the funky submission moves.
Okay.
Match. And then, not that I've really done much, but I still like them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a pretty, yeah, like I say, it was a weird one because obviously Flair is the ultimate heel. And you got that, sort of that idea with some of the crowd with signs with all the Japanese writing and cheering for Fujinami and that, just because how much they hate Flair, I guess, rather than going for the usual USA versus foreigners gimmick. But yeah, pretty good match. I mean, there's a couple of botching to sort of break down the communications in it. There's a nice bit, it's just before the bow and arrow, where Flair's just randomly on all fours and tries to feed his leg to him, and Fujinami completely ignores him and picks him up. But yeah, and this is the one, I've seen him do it a few times, but this is the worst one, where he's going up top to be thrown off the old Flair, the throw off the top, where Fujinami goes to fully do it one-handed, and Flair has to reach down and grab his other hand and try and hold it on his chest.
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
saw that.
Yeah, that after he missed the flip in the corner as well. But so a few things don't really gel, and just Flair with the short hair just looks weird.
Yeah, it wasn't his best haircut, was it? Definitely.
No.
Because wasn't that where Jim Herd wanted him to cut his hair short and change and call himself Spartacus or something?
Yeah, it was, the Spartacus thing was, I think, another Turner Classic Movies tie-in idea.
Oh, right.
But that was more of just a throwaway, let's get him to do that. And I don't think they even asked him to do it. But yeah, they made him cut his hair, and he wasn't happy about that. There was one thing they mentioned earlier, sort of in the introduction, that there have been 2 title changes in this venue in the history of WCW. The first one being in 1969. Yeah, because WCW, yeah, okay, if you say so. And the other thing you didn't mention that made the whole thing more convoluted, the IWGP title was involved in this whole thing as well.
Ah, yes, because was Fujinami the IWGP
Fujinami
champ
was
at the time?
Yeah, he was the champ at the time. And then I think in the first match it was meant to be NWA versus IWGP. Then this one was WCW versus NWA, all the top. But again, WCW just didn't actually mention half of them.
Yeah.
And then I was looking it up on Wikipedia, and it got even more confusing because then the NWA did recognise the title change, and then they didn't, and then WCW did for a bit, and then didn't, and then did, and then didn't, and now WWF doesn't, or WWE doesn't recognise that as a title change, and it's even more convoluted. But yeah, the match itself, it's a slow burn. The Fujinami sells the hell out of Flair's chops, which is a nice change because as much as he does them, people don't seem to sell them that much. And this is the other one Ross mentions about the Dragon Sleeper and the Dragon Suplex, and they really took my imagination back then. And I didn't see him for probably another 10 years and know what they were.
Yeah, because he doesn't hit either of them, does he?
No, it doesn't hit or even go for either of them.
I think he puts the Dragon Sleeper on because he came back for Wrestle War 92. It's him and
of course he does, yeah.
Izuku against the Steiners, and I think he briefly puts the Dragon Sleeper on one of the Steiners. Then, yeah. Okay, Liam, what were your thoughts on our main event?
Yeah, so first off, the entrance music of Ric Flair wasn't a dub over. That was very much what they had him come out to, because as you said about the haircut and other crap, they are very much actively trying to strip away the essence of Ric Flair. Rumor has it is they banned all flight attendants from the arena as well, just to really stop him from being in his element. Can I say that yet?
Yeah, too soon. Too soon, I think. Allegedly.
No, as far as criminal charges go, not soon enough. But yeah, that was the old incarnation of the Four Horsemen theme that they all came out to for the War Games match at the previous pay-per-view. They'd used a few times from their 1990 reformation onwards. It's all right. It's nothing like what became the Arn Anderson theme. Which was also temporarily a bit of a Horseman theme as well, around the Nitro Watch Along era. And obviously they had a real good go of it when they reformed in '98. They had that proper, the one with a proper galloping sound effects.
Yes.
That's a good theme as well. After a few goes, it's a pretty mediocre in the chart of all-time Horseman themes. It's a mediocre one, but they had him come out to it because why have him stand out as the star that he is? And yeah, there's not really much wrong with the belt per se, but I've got to say I just couldn't bring myself to give a fuck about this match. And it's not a good side. If you got saying, oh well, it's technically good, it's technically sound, it's what a proper match should be. It's just basically what Triple H big matches became famous for being. And it weren't exclusive to Triple H. I don't want to single him out, but he did this more than anyone else. But there was definitely some other guilty parties that would have these matches that are big, they are epic. They've got the star power, they've got the prestige, and there's nothing wrong with the match, and yet no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
This was
I say, especially after following the last two matches as well.
Yeah, it didn't help.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes back to the seeming curse of New Japan wrestlers on WCW pay-per-views. Because I think with the exception of Jushin Liger and maybe an Ultimo Dragon, they just don't. That was obviously Dragon was years later. They just didn't seem to ever get over properly.
I think the issue, like you said before, is most of the time they were sort of flown over the night before, and were still seem to be jet lagged and not into it. Whereas Liger was over for at least a few weeks, if not months.
Yeah.
And yeah, that probably helped him. But yeah, it just didn't seem to click, did it? With the crowd, with each other so much.
Yeah, no, definitely. So overall, this, I mean, we've seen some excellent matches and we've seen some absolute dross as well. We've really had the extremes at both ends of the spectrum. But how would you rate this show overall, Barry? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I guess thumbs up, really. I mean, there was only probably 4 of the 12 matches which were actually good. But yeah, overall, especially with the last 3 were all pretty damn good. And it drugged out especially as I'm still used to the VHS where most of the dross was cut out.
Yeah.
So that helps. But yeah, I mean, I'd say thumbs up overall. I mean, it was nothing. Overall, it wasn't a spectacular event, and they just seemed to shove too much in and have to cut everything really short. But I mean, just for the Steiners, Sting and Luger, and Eaton Arn, that's almost enough in itself. Yeah. And the opener was good. I liked Pillman and Wyndham. That was pretty good, one-sided as it was. And I mean, the Oz match was what it was. all a spectacle as well, weren't it? So.
Well,
Yeah.
certainly not something we'll forget in a hurry. The Oz match.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Marvellous.
overall, yeah, enjoyed it.
Excellent. And Liam, what about you?
Yeah, no, in this age, I'm afraid, where you can pretty much like single out certain matches and things like that, this show as an entire thing really doesn't hold up, does it? There's a lot of dross to get through, and I think most people in their right minds will just track down the Steiner's tag match.
Yeah. And the Oz match. Come on now.
Well,
Apart from the guys at that monkey sanctuary, but
welcome to Oz.
Welcome to Oz. But yeah, I think. I mean, I liked watching it as a whole because that's how it was presented at the time, and you'd have to sit through some of the shit to get to the gold. But hey, no, I'd say overall it's a thumbs up. I think the good outweighed the bad, and some of the bad was terrifically entertaining as well.
This is Lance Storm, and if I can be serious for a minute, you're listening to Because WCW.
Marvelous. Right. Well, thank you very much for that, Barry. Thank you for joining us. Now, before we let you go, if people want to get hold of you find you on socials and things like that, where can they get you?
Just Voodoo Wrestler on Instagram or Facebook. That's about it at the moment.
Cool. And
there will be a website at some point, probably. I think I said that last time as well.
Probably, yeah. And they can see you as one of the regulars at WrestleForce Wrestling down in
WrestleForce. I'm now
south of England.
The double champion at the moment, so I have to carry around 2 belts. That's always fun.
Oh.
EWW as well on there most shows. I think by the time this is released, they would have announced their next show for the 19th of March next year down in Hastings.
Okay.
19th of March.
Yeah, so Liam and I have said we do have to get down to one of them, definitely.
Yeah, and they're doing sort of their smaller venue at the moment, but I mean they packed that out last time. I had to import in a load of seats, so they still done a good few hundred for that, and they had a great setup for it. So same again, and yeah, should be good.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time and trouble to join us. And if you want to follow us, if you don't already follow us on Twitter, you can find us at BecauseWCW or Facebook.com/BecauseWCW. If you subscribe to this podcast from wherever you get your podcasts from, you will get each new episode as soon as it comes out. And yeah, basically, if you're on things like Apple iPodcasts, iTunes, whatever, if you can give us a good review, we would be eternally grateful. We'll be back hopefully in a lot less than a month's time with another episode. We've got other guests lined up. We've got watch-alongs to do. The list, the joy is never ending, Liam.
Yeah, no promises on the not monthly part. It's the wooden age for podcasting.
Yeah, and it's about time one of our laptops broke again.
Do not do that. Don't jinx me.
But hey, we're coming to the end of the year where we often have our listeners sending questions as well. So we might
do that again, shouldn't we?
Yeah, the Christmas tradition, answering your questions with a glass of port or something.
Yeah, absolutely. While 3 sheets to the wind on eggnog, that's non-negotiable.
God, yeah. Absolutely. Right. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for taking the time and trouble to download this podcast. As I said, you can find the other 104 episodes wherever you get your podcast from usually. So until next time, on behalf of Barry, on behalf of Liam, this is me, the Twisted Genius, saying thanks for listening, and I'll see you ringside.